recorded live in an undisclosed location somewhere in the heart of high strangeness, just outside of Monsterland, Massachusetts. And now here are your hosts, paranormal author, researcher, and speaker, Ronnie LeBlanc, and the host of The Curse of Oak Island Drilling Down on the History Channel, Maddie Blake.
Welcome, monsters. Good to be with you again. With me, as always, author, lecturer, paranormal expert, and friend, Ronnie LeBlanc.
What's up, Maddie?
How you doing, buddy?
Good, brother.
Our night. Let's get to the nitty-gritty. Let's get to why we're here.
Jeff WOOLWINE.
Now, tell me about this guy. Where did you find him?
You know, I just, there's certain people that I've been following on Facebook, and, you know, I've heard of him from before. Jeff's been on Ancient Aliens in the early days. But, I just noticed him recently talking about stuff. I've just seen his orb videos, but then also, you know, he's really kind of tied in the whole Native American culture, the Petroglyphs, and he'll talk about in this episode what he thinks these things really are.
Well,
and it takes it down a path that I think maybe this is where we're going.
this is probably one of our more controversial interviews in terms of him.
Oh, totally.
Jeff, you know, the orb videos are incredible. Like, you talk about an orange orb. If you go to his site,
and he's shooting these similar to me, okay, where I'm going in my backyard and just kind of, they're all over the place. He's doing the same thing. He moved to a particular spot in Arizona that has a high activity. Posting that he's taken from his, like, kitchen window.
Yeah.
But they're just constant, and it's daylight. It's not these crappy night videos with a light kind of blinking. Is that a plane? No, it's a blue sky, and you see this yellowish orange orb just freaking sitting there. Or these shape-shifting objects.
Weird objects.
Very weird.
So that's the, you know, I'm not going to give up the interview here, but what he says these things are, he says, according to him, has cost him appearances on these shows that he was on, because he says there's something that aren't craft, and it's a controversial stance. He also has a very unique take on the Phoenix Lights. He's from Phoenix, and we had Dr. Lynn Katai. You can go back to our earlier season one episode interview with her. So, but he's got a great spirit. He's got an infectious energy.
He's got
super
a great
funny
energy. And you know what? We need people like this that we can collaborate with, that we can continue, because you know what? It's going to take people to have an outside-the-box kind of view of this whole thing. And it's all about perspective and perception, and he has a different... He's on some kind of path, and he kind of says at the beginning of this interview, he goes, I'm not sure why I'm seeing these things, but I find it to be a more of a spiritual path, as opposed to, you know, I've been abducted by aliens, but maybe he's being guided to help others understand this. And it's similar to what we're doing here. You know, why I wrote the book was, one, to kind of shed some light on what I was starting to go through, but also maybe others can kind of relate to this and share their stories and try to spread the truth, even if it seems crazy as shit.
Yeah.
You know, there's something going on, and more people are kind of, I think, coming awake and just kind of seeing that there's something more to what's going on.
I agree, because whether you disagree or agree with Jeff after hearing this interview, it's important to hear other takes and other voices. If we become fundamentalist about our beliefs about something that, let's be honest, nobody knows. They might think they know, they might believe they know, but we don't know if they know the truth. Why not hear everybody?
I'm trying to think of the quote, too, that says that, you know, when you have, like, geniuses, at first they're against you, right?
And then
And then they start to kind of, and then once your theories are proven true, like, oh yeah, I know that guy. I knew it. And it's kind of like what he's kind of going through, because there is, and I firmly believe this, a Native American understanding that would help us in modern day times understand what the hell's going on.
No doubt.
And if we put that piece together, I mean, we talk about this a little bit. It's all about these different locations and the energy of these locations and the history of these locations, and what is at these locations is some kind of opening, closing, where these things are coming in and out of, whether they're other dimensions, which we're starting to learn more about with Sasquatch. This is not an animal. that we think it is. It's not a cryptozoological creature, but something else. But then maybe, and Jeff gets into it, you'll have to hear, but it just takes it down a different road and starts to almost make sense, even though it sounds so crazy.
Speaking of sounding crazy, all I can think of now is 311. Damn you, David. Damn you, producer David. Decide for yourself, monsters. Here's Jeff WOOLWINE. Jeff WOOLWINE, welcome to Monsterland.
Hey, thank you very much. Great to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you. So Ronnie started telling me a while ago about your videos, and he was like, you got to check these out. You got to check these out. And then we were going through them. We were blown away.
Crazy with the orbs and everything else. And it'll just, can you give us a little bit of background on you and how you started getting into this? And I'm just amazed at how many videos you seem to be posting with orbs and other type of creatures almost.
Yeah, I got into UFOs, years ago, over 20 years ago, when I just first started, noticing them. I can remember as a kid growing up in this area here, in Phoenix, Arizona, I was seeing orbs in the sky, I was seeing lights in the sky, but I really didn't, pay much attention to it. I mean, I knew that there were UFOs in the sky because, me and my classmates used to talk about it, and the funny thing of it is, like when I was a kid, like in 5th grade, I was talking to a Native American friend of mine. He was about the same age I was, and I was like, yeah, did you see that light last night? And he's like, well, my grandfather says that they live in those mountains, and he pointed towards the White Tank Mountains, towards the west side of Phoenix. And that just really didn't dawn on me because I'm just a kid. I'm in the 5th grade. Well, let's get, let's go play, But later, when I started realizing, wow, man, there is something here in the sky, that's when I really started, watching them back. And, I can't take any credit for it. I'm just watching it. I'm a witness. I'm a video. It's all them. I'm just watching back. But I feel very fortunate that they are revealing themselves to me, and for reasons not yet understood yet. I mean, I go through some of it into my second book, which is being published now. The first book is already out, and that's called The Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky, True Stories, Myths, Legends, and UFOs over Phoenix, Arizona. An investigation I did, I learned that, the source of these things, where these things like to hang out, is by a mountain. I purposely moved to the east side of South Mountain in 2005, and I sat there for a couple years. And I had a perfect view out the window there, my kitchen window, camera, tripod set up, everything ready to go. And lo and behold, one came out of the sky and kind of absorbed itself into the rock there, And I'm like, wow, and like months before this, in my investigation, I had seen a Native American shaman up on South Mountain on a public access television show out here in Phoenix, and he was talking about the petroglyphs. Now, one of the people that he was explaining these to, he says, this stick figure man looks like he's looking up at something above him in the sky.
Jeff, real quick, explain what a petroglyph is. Those are those huge figures carved into the earth, right? Like human.
Yes. Here in the Southwest, and from the Indian writings, they're carved into stone. They're called petroglyphs. They're on the other side of the world, such as Egypt. They're called hieroglyphs. So there's different interpretations, but pretty much the same meaning. I mean, they're all carved. They're all, talking about the same stuff. But down here in the Southwest, and sometimes around the United States, the Native Americans, they call them petroglyphs, which means rock carving, rock art. And so anyway, he goes, yes. He goes, that is one of the interpretations here, is that our ancestors saw and recorded things in the sky. And that just set off a light bulb in my head. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, we have strange lights in the sky. Now we have strange markings on the rocks out here. There has to be a connection.
Right.
So I got a hold of this guy, and I met him up there on South Mountain, and we did about a 2.5, maybe 3 hour tour. And he went into some crazy stuff I was thinking at the time. He was telling me about the spiral and the significance of South Mountain and how holy and sacred it was. and he was telling me about light and shadow markers and spirits, okay? He wasn't going into craft. He was talking spirits, man. You know, and he was telling me that these spirals, right, are representing doorways. Okay,
Portals.
now, I think it was, portals. I think it's like 80% of South Mountain out here has spirals carved on it.
To the spiral topic, you said, like some people say that it was, for water, and then other people might think that it's like emergent points.
That's correct, yeah.
Or a vortex.
Yeah, like a vortex, yeah, and of course that's the big feeling for Native people is that we emerge from the earth. The Hopis talk to us about we're in the fourth world.
Right.
Because, basically what happened is we screwed up 3 times. So I said, well, let's just start over again. So here we are in the fourth world. So that spiral then, one of those emergence points into this world. And so kind of think of it like looking down into a tunnel, or maybe up into a tunnel to the next world, for that matter.
To the next world,
Yeah.
right. The animals, for instance, the deers or the coyotes, are always looking in sacred places to find these spirit beings at, to where some of the doors are, and also some of these sacred objects that are buried here within the mountains. They're forever looking at sacred places. So this deer here, now he's kind of looking up at a diamond spiral, okay? Now these spirals represent doorways for these beings. Now, we find spirals here on South Mountain. 20% of them are water, natural watering holes, but the majority of them here on South Mountains are doorways for these supernatural beings. Here, we have what looks like, what the Indians like to say, a lizard man, okay? And the story on these lizard men is when the Hohokam first arrived here, they didn't know how to live here in the desert. So these creatures came up out of the sand world. They looked just like us. They lost their tails, and they were able to teach the Native Americans how to live. And when they were done teaching them, they went back down into the sand world and promised to return someday. Now, some of the Native Americans here, when you ask them, because you will see that little dot in their belly. You see the dot in their stomach there? Now, some of the Native Americans will say, well, that's our spirit, and he's halfway in the rock and halfway out of the rock. He's coming out of the rock. But in my studies on watching these UFOs, I believe that dot there is an orb. This is what we're seeing in the sky today. And actually what this orb is doing is he's transforming into a man. He's representing a man. He's actually morphing into a human. So that dot in the belly there is actually a UFO orb, and he's morphing into a man.
Native Americans that first lived here, and the Pimas call them Hohokam. Now, Hohokam is a Pima name, meaning the people who have vanished, the people who are gone, the people who got taken away. Because we don't know what happened to these people. They were here 1,000 years. They built the greatest canal systems in the world. They supposedly were a peaceful race. But yet, one day, they simply upped and vanished, okay, with no trace. I mean, even when me and you move, we take our belongings with us. But yet the Hohokam disappeared. Well, when you examine the petroglyphs as much as I have within the last 20 years, and you look at the evidence, and you look at the facts, and you talk to other Native Americans who will talk to you about this, because not all of them will talk to you about this. Some might have theories, some tell you some other crazy stuff, but some will tell you the truth. And the ones that really made sense, because I'm going with the history here, I'm going what was carved on the rocks, because they didn't have video cameras back then to record their sightings, to record what had happened. They had stone boulders to record something significant at the times of what had happened on sacred spots. This is the reason why we find rock art on one side of the mountain, but we won't find rock art on the other side of the mountain, is because nothing happened over there. It all happened here. When you see rock art in a specific place, that is a testimony. That is a photograph, if you will, of what happened in this area. So when you look down at the petroglyphs tell you, man, hey, these phoenix lights, these orbs, these flying serpents, these flying spiders, these flying swastikas are picking people up by their heads and taking them away. Now, I describe this into my book, and it goes into it, and it says that the devil came from the east and took the people away. Now, there were people that survived this Holocaust. They hid in caves. They saw what was going on. They saw all these things taking people up and taking them up into the sky, never to return. And they were terrified.
I've always wondered that. I've always wondered that because they would go underground. It was like, what caused them to do that unless there was some kind of threat coming from the air?
Now, when it was all over with, they buried all their stuff here in the mountain, and they swore never to come back into this valley. They knew if they were going to live here in this valley of the sun, that eventually they would have to go back to war with these spirits of the earth and sky. So they were terrified, and nobody lived. This is a cursed land. And they all took off. They went back to Mexico, to where their fatherlands were. And nobody lived here for 400 years. Now, there were Indians and tribesmen on the outskirts of Phoenix, Arizona, watching the lights, watching the Phoenix lights, watching all these crazy things, but they were afraid. They'd never stepped into this valley.
It's occurring to me, like, we keep finding patterns on this podcast as we interview people. So two huge themes keep coming up as we speak to people like yourself and to abductees or to whomever involved in this world. And that is Native Americans keep coming up over and over and over again.
Shamans,
and then also mountains as access points for UFOs. You know, you got Iseti, Mount Adams, you've got in China,
Mount Kalish.
Mount Kalish in China, and now you're telling us they're in Phoenix. What do you think that is? Do you think that's where they come in and out of?
You know, in 2004, I noticed that these lights, when I was filming them, you can see there's a power plant. There's a major power plant on the east side of South Mountain that's bored down into the fault line. Now, I found an old map that when the pioneers first got here, they mapped all the canal systems and all the places where the Holocom lived, and it seems where that power plant sits today is right the heart of the Holocom city. So they were seeing lights there, and in my opinion, through the rock art and through everything that I've investigated, that these Holocom Indians, they wanted to get as close as they could to their spirits because these were their gods. You know, just as it says in some of these scrolls that we read. You know, I even find evidence that there was giants up here in South Mountain. Matter of fact, the Superstition Mountain, there's a whole myth about that.
Yes.
Let's not even go into that.
Well, even
that's nothing compared to the giant story that's going on over there.
Right. Well, I'm even thinking like Moses, right, going up to the mountain to get the 10 Commandments. There's always that.
Right. You know, absolutely. You know, when you look at this, when you look at the. You know, when you read some of that, you know, if we take religion out of the Bible, okay, and we look at it as a history book, it tells you what these things are. It tells you they have been here the whole time. Exodus, the books of Numbers, when Moses was leading his followers out of Egypt, it says a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, and these people followed this thing around in the desert. It says that thing stopped in the desert and no people pitched camp and wouldn't move for a whole year until that thing started to move. Okay, so basically they're following a UFO in the desert for 40 years, man. You know, and what happened to Moses? He was taken away by a light, and it wasn't Moses that brought people into the Promised Land. It was that thing in the sky.
Were you part of? Did you see what is? I know you see lights all the time and you take tons of video, but I'm wondering because we had Dr. Lynn Kitai on the show, and I'm wondering if you saw what is, you know, kind of famously known as the first Phoenix lights. Did you see those?
Okay. Well, no, I wasn't there the event. I heard about the lights. I didn't start seeing the lights until I believe it was 2000. I think it was like around 1999, 2000. I guess it was. I didn't start filming them until 2004. But when it comes down to this serious case, okay, you really have to ask yourself. Now, let's get this out in the open.
Okay.
I do believe that there are crafts out there. Sure, why not? It's open. But what I think the majority of what the people are seeing, because I have studied this, I have seen this, I have witnessed it firsthand in 2005, and continue to witness this, is another living entity. I was the first one to bring this to to the attention of the ufologists, to the History Channel, to Ancient Aliens. Matter of fact, I was on the pilot for the Ancient Alien series and also the UFO Hunter show, which later turned into the UFO Hunter show, and I did that show also. And at the time, they were just telling me, well, it's just a theory, and, blah, 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 blah. And they're telling me, dude, you're filming some outrageous stuff, and it was. It was not a craft. It's not technology.
Yeah.
Okay, and when it comes to the Phoenix Lights, you really have to ask yourself, now, if you see 5 lights out there, if you see 10 lights out there, it's not a close ship, it's a living entity. Each light is a specific entity being, okay, and they're in formation. Okay, now I have filmed them flying over the city. Matter of fact, the lights flew over my house back in November. That video is really cool. That was really neat that night. We saw some lights over here on the west side also from my apartment. Just 2 of them from the west side. It was really quick.
What kind of entities do you think they are, Jeff?
Yeah.
When you say that,
You're drawing a clear distinction between craft and entities. So who are the entities?
This is something completely different. If you look at Mexico, they're calling it the Quetzalcoatl, the flying serpent.
Yes.
Okay, we got the same carvings out here on South Mountain. Look at my Facebook page. I was just up there.
Similar to the Asian dragon.
And I'm showing the video. Look, they're looking up at a flying snake, not a flying saucer, not a flying craft. I can't find any flying saucers or flying crafts up on South Mountain. What I find is living entities. They're seeing living creatures, flying spiders, flying crosses, flying orbs, flying lights, okay? Flying swastikas, okay? It's weird stuff. It's another living organism, if you will. Just as the oceanographers are finding new species of life below the ocean, this is a new species of life above the ocean that the scientists and many other people fail to recognize.
So above, so below, right?
That's it, sir. And a lot of people, they see this orb up there and they automatically think it's a ship.
Right.
But what they're not realizing is, look, what if it is a living entity? It's an animal higher than us. Okay,
so that explains a lot when you think of the whole disclosure movement and why maybe they've been kind of holding back on revealing that information, because it's not necessarily another civilization that's like us per se, and yes, there's other beings and whatnot, but what people are actually seeing are these creatures, these dragons, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what that is, and that kind of changes the whole game.
To be fair, even like Lynn Kitai and some of her stuff was describing these things almost as angelic, if you will, besides the actual light. She described, remember the thing coming up to her and people having kind of angelic experiences or experiences. And then also, Jeff, there are people even in ufology who have described some of these craft because they didn't have the probably words that you have or the knowledge of the take that you have. They're thinking craft, but they describe them as somehow biological, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they're saying craft because that's all they know about at the time, and they really haven't studied. They don't have the time. I did. I watched them out and I saw these things firsthand. They flew by my window so many times, and I have clear evidence and video of this. And I have evidence of the rock art, to back me up. But once I figured out all this, I knew I was right, and it didn't matter what everybody else said to me. Look, dude, this is what history is saying these are, and I'm a witness to it. The Indians was a witness.
I'm sorry, Jeff. I'm sorry. Have you been contacted by these entities through, extrasensory or anything like that?
Like
or is it
telepathy?
or is it just you see them?
What I learned in my research on this and on the petroglyphs and this mountain, I learned that the petroglyphs has the power to invoke them. And if you go up there and you talk to them and you acknowledge that they're real and you acknowledge that this is existence and you don't have any shadow of doubt, they will come and see you. But I really think it probably goes deeper than that. I really don't understand why I'm seeing them so much and other people don't. Maybe because I'm more open-minded to it. Maybe because I understand them a little bit more. But like I said, I was seeing them when I was a kid. So, who knows? I don't know if there's some kind of bloodline going on.
Well, do you have Native American blood?
Not that I know of, no. I was adopted, so I don't know my real parents.
You might.
Well, it's interesting, too, because I feel like, even on my own kind of path and experiencing this stuff, it started bringing back recollections of my childhood and certain experiences or encounters that I had that kind of made more sense now coming from this perspective. And I just wonder if you feel like you are on, you talked about meeting with the Native American shaman and kind of guiding you. Do you feel like you're on this almost like a spiritual path now, more so than something that is, I guess, alien, but more kind of an understanding of the greater thing that's kind of going on out there?
I tell you what, the more you investigate it, the more you see them, the more you understand, it's going to change you. It changes the way you look at the world. It changes everything. It changes your life. I mean, it changes everything. So, yes, I would say it's like a spiritual walk. But, it does change you. You are open to what's here. You understand more. And, it was really cool because I was up there on the mountain that day and I saw this orb carving and I was like, hey, come and see me, come check me out, I haven't seen you in a while. Come. 2 days later, man, that orange orb, that yellow orb came over, man. It was great. Came from the west, hung up there in the sky there for a little while, and then it started going east, and it turned, east, and then it turned and went back the way it came from, man. So, if that's not contact, dude, I don't know what.
Yeah, that's awesome,
It's
Jeff.
great. Okay, so we need to ask ourselves, okay, we're seeing these things in the sky today. What does this say about our future? Are we going to end up disappearing also?
Well, I was wondering what your thoughts are on that because, we keep on hearing that the veil is being lifted, that there's being a merging of both worlds, the spiritual world, the spiritual realm, and the physical realm. Do you think that we're going to see something like this, that this is going to be maybe this is an apocalyptic type of event that's coming our way?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Every time the man interacts with these things, because when you look at the interpretation here, when you look at the legend, it says that when the Holocaust arrived here, they didn't know how to live. So these things came up out of the sand world, and they looked like humans, and they taught these people how to live. In return, they wished that these things was gone. And then it went back down to the sand world, and then everything went to heck. They got taken away. Okay, so I think what's going on now is they're finally it's very possible that they were, after this flood that wiped out everything, after they got taken away, that they were dormant, that they got locked up and dormant for 1,000 years. Well, this 1,000 years is up. All right, now they're coming out. And I think it's only about, and they're waiting. Some would like to call them watchers. Okay, they're waiting, they're watching, before man's going to need them one more time. Because if one landed on the White House lawn and says, here I am, worship us. People say, wait a minute, man, I gotta go to school, I gotta go to work, man, I got a roof to support over my head, I don't got time to worship you. I do, what's up with that? But if something was to happen, and 2/3 of the population is gone, and there's no water, and there's toxins in the air, and the world is a desolate place, and then one comes down and turns himself into a man and say, look what I can do for you, I can clean up the waters, I can clean up the air, I can give you food. In return, worship me. That opens up a whole new book of Revelation here.
Right.
The thing that really kicks me in the butt here about all of this is the same stuff that we read in Genesis 6 when these things came down and interacted with man and then things got crazy. It's the same story up on the rocks here. All right, it's neat. You can read it in the book, and then you can come out here and on mountains and you can see the photograph of what the book is talking about, man.
Wow.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Jeff, I'm sensing, your passion is clear and the videos are incredible on your site, and we'll direct people to your Facebook page and to your petroglyphsinthesky.com and all that. But I'm sensing like your passion almost sounds like you might have got some resistance to the fact that you're saying they're entities as opposed to craft. How has that manifested itself?
This is all new to people. This was new ever since 2005 when I discovered it. And history was telling me, this is all new. You can't go saying living entities, you can't go saying angels, you can't say spirits, you can't say this and that. You gotta say craft, dude. Because what you're filming is bizarre stuff and people aren't ready for it.
Wow.
I've been criticized all these years, oh, dude, you're filming balloons, you're filming flares and all this crap. And I'm like, dude, let's get real. So now, like, it just started hitting about in the last 13 years. People are just now starting to see these flying snakes and these orbs and these other crazy-looking things. And they're messaging me, not only here in the United States, but around the world. You know, look, I filmed the same thing you saw in 2005. So it's all coming into play now, especially when you look into Mexico sightings. Oh, my God, they're not crack, dude. They're all wicked worms, dude. They're crazy entities going on out there in Mexico. This is what's going on here in Arizona and also in the United States and also around the world. I've been getting reports from Chile. They're seeing the same type of entities, not craft, but living, biological, if you will, supernatural entities. They're creatures. Someone even call them monsters, man. They're scary. You know, and this is the biggest conspiracy of all time. This is the biggest cover-up of all time. It says, yes, these things are real. They're here. This is why the government is not talking about these things, because everyone is expecting a UFO and a green man to come out of it and say, here, I'm here to cure cancer. That's not what's going to happen here, brother. There's something different, man.
Jeff, you're awesome, man. Jeff WOOLWINE, thank you so much. We want to talk to you again. We will stay in touch. Yeah, man. Great stuff, brother. Thank you.
Is there a lot of overlap between the Sumerian texts and the Old Testament?
Yes.
Well, can you give me an example of that?
Well, first of all, the creation of the Adam, where a group of, in the plural, Elohim, which is a plural term, said, let us, in the plural, fashion the Adam in our image and after our likeness.
So if there's only one God, who is the us?
Well, Elohim is a plural term.
Yes, Elohim.
Right.
Okay. And who are the Nephilim that are mentioned in Genesis as well?
Yeah, the Nephilim were, the Bible itself, by the way, says that the Nephilim were part of the Anakim, which is Hebrew for Anunnaki, but usually taken to mean giants. And that's how I got into the whole subject when I challenged the teacher why he told us that chapter 6 of Genesis begins with those were the days when there were giants upon the earth. And I said the word Nephilim means those who have come down, who descended in context from heaven to earth, and I was reprimanded for it.
So there was some it appears there was some intermingling.
So they were part of the Anunnaki, and indeed, again, to mention my latest book, who they were precisely is explained at great length.
Okay, we're talking about ancient astronauts who came to Earth, intermingled with the daughters of men.
Time intermarried, yes.
And is this why the gene pool was cleansed by the Great Flood?
Well, why Enlil was the one who was unhappy with mankind. Why he was unhappy with mankind? This intermarriage was one of the reasons, and indeed from the very beginning, his position was, we didn't come and we have no right to play God with the capital G. So we shouldn't have done it to begin with. And if the flood is coming and mankind can perish, let it perish.
So we have two major figures here that we're discussing that were Anunnaki, members of the Anunnaki race, these ancient astronauts.
Two leaders who were half-brothers.
Half-brothers. Enlil and Enki.
Right.
And
Enlil meant Lord of the Command, and Enki meant Lord of Earth.
And Enki seemed to be somewhat sympathetic to the human cause.
Right.
You suggest, I believe, or the tablets suggest that he was the one responsible for Adam and Eve inadvertently being tossed out of the Garden of Eden. Can you explain how that happened?
No, he was the one who, in a second manipulation, because the first, by the way, the Bible refers to the new being as the Adam, as a species, not as a personal name.
But I'm saying he gave them knowledge.
Yeah. No, he gave them knowing. Knowing in the Bible means to have sex for the purpose of procreation. So like any hybrid, like a mule that cannot procreate, Enki engaged in a second genetic manipulation giving this couple the ability to procreate. And then, of course, Eve could have a child, and they bear a son and another son, and so on.
Well, in Genesis, the messenger for this knowledge came in the form of a serpent. Was Enki a serpent?
Well, Richard, I think we need 5 hours, not 1 hour.
Yes, true enough.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the symbol of medicine, which was the symbol of Enki, and compare it with the double helix DNA, you see why he was called the Nachash. Nachash in Hebrew means serpent, means he who knows secrets, who can decipher secrets, and he of the copper. So the first two I understand, but the role of copper is still one that I'm asking anybody who read my books and knows biology better than me to tell me what was the role of copper in all this creation.
Okay, let's go to Burlington and welcome Brian to News Talk 1010 in the night side. Brian? Hello, Brian? Okay, you got to keep your radios turned off. Let's go to Alana. Welcome to News Talk 1010, Alana.
Hi, I was wondering if the Anunnaki were the fallen angels of the Bible.
Yes.
They are?
Well, that's what we just talked about, the Nephilim. The Nephilim means those who came down, who descended, who fell down, the so-called fallen agent.
Okay, Alana, thanks for the call, and we say hello to Patrick. Welcome to News Talk 1010 in the night side.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
My comment is, I have a lot of, issues.
I can barely hear him.
Patrick, you'll have to really speak up.
Okay, sorry about that. I have a lot of issues. Obviously, you don't have time, and I realize that. Zechariah referred to the stories in the Bibles as tales, and it sounds to me like what he's written in his book are more tales than what's written in the Bible. But my question is, if he can comment on, since the Bible plays such a very important role even in our lives today, the people written about in the Bible, I, for a fact, know that they are the descendants of slaves, the people living today in North America whose forefathers were slaves in the Americas. I want him to comment on that if he can. The people
well, the times, the Sumerian times, and even the biblical times, we are talking about thousands of years ago. We are talking about people living in the United States or Canada today. So I really cannot.
I'm not sure I understand.
Cannot imply one to a different condition.
I'm not sure if he was referring to the descendants of Ham or not there. However, the pantheon of deities that the Sumerians worshipped, these Anunnaki, the Anunnaki, and you mentioned Enlil and Enki and a number of others that are in the book, they seem to parallel the pantheon of deities of Greece. I'm talking about the 12 Olympians, those of Babylon, even those of Egypt.
Right.
Are they
all one and the same, except that they were called by different names. But if you analyze what the name meant in that particular language, for example, the deity, as you call him, or God with a small g, that was called Enki by the Sumerians, had another epithet title, Nudimud, which means the one who develops, who fashions things. And in Egypt, he was the god Ptah, whose name meant he who develops things. So it's the same so-called divine beings.
So, and who is the sun god Ra of Egypt parallel to?
Ra was parallel to Marduk in the Sumerian.
Marduk was Enki's son.
Enki's firstborn son, yes.
And this is interesting. Well, time is tight here, but let me just ask you this one last question. And what do you make of the increase in UFO sightings in the last year or two? Do you think there's any connection to the Anunnaki?
Yes.
And can you comment a little bit further?
That's the shortest answer I gave you
Okay,
tonight.
well, it's a good one. And, well, I hope you'll agree to come back on the program and discuss this again. Okay.
It'll be a pleasure.
And, Zechariah, the new book again is?
The Lost Book of Enki.
The Lost Book of Enki. And can they order that from the website?
No, they have to go to the bookstore.
To the book.
It's in any major bookstore in Canada. They can buy it on the web from Amazon. Yeah.
Okay. And
my website is just where I put new items, including a notice of our interview. So it's for information only.
www.sitchin.com.
Right.
Zechariah.
Or they can write to me, if I can mention.
Yes.
PO Box 577, New York, 10185.
Post Office Box 577, New York, 10185. Zechariah, a great pleasure.
Thank you.